Welcome to Brewsers, podcast about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. I'm your host, Rody John, and today we talk to John and Dan with Batson River Brewing and Distilling. We talk all about their origins, the main beer scene, and so much more. This is such a fun conversation. You do hear in the middle that their internet does go out a little bit, but it worked out just fine, and this brewery is absolutely amazing. I was lucky enough to get some beer from them, and I loved everything that they did, and you're going to love their story as well. Now, speaking of things you love, make sure to sign up for our newsletter. It comes out twice a week. You get even more information about our guests. You get fun facts, and you get to find out what's happening with your favorite podcast, all about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. So without further ado, here is John and Dan with Batson River Brewing and Distilling. I'd like to welcome the show Batson River Brewing and Distillery. How are y'all doing today?
We're doing well. How are you doing today, John?
Doing great. Thanks, John.
Doing well. So yeah, just so people can kind of figure out who's talking, let's introduce both of y'all. Who are you and what's going on around you right now?
Well, my name is John Quaddy. I oversee brewing and distilling at Batson River. I've been here since 2018, so I've got to see the whole company grow from day one. And I'm here with Dan Stampone.
Yeah, I'm Dan Stampone, head brewer. I came on board in 2022, the summer. I think it was probably May that I started up here full time as our new facility was being built out and renovated and sort of retrofit to produce the type of beer that we would like to produce. The space was previously occupied by another brewery. That didn't work out for them. Their equipment wasn't really up to snuff for what we wanted to do. So, while I was being onboarded, there were some, purchases made to swap equipment out so we could really produce the quality of beer with the same level of consistency that we really want to put forward.
Love that. Now, let's go all the way back in time. What is both y'all's earliest memory of beer?
Oh, man. Probably something involving Natural Light or Ice House in the woods somewhere in New Hampshire. I'd say probably number one. It was a little hazy, but that's my first one. How about you, Dan?
Yeah, I may have had a sip of my dad's Coors Light when I was a kid and probably thought it was gross. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the first experience I had with beer, coincidentally, that is actually something that's become quite popular again. We were staying at the beach. My parents had rented a beach house, and they went out grocery shopping. I was looking for something to snack on. I opened the fridge, and there was a St. Pauli's Girl N.A. in the fridge, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. So I started to muscle through it. It was still not a flavor I was very familiar with, but the look on my parents' face when they came back from the grocery store was totally worth it because they're like, what the hell are you doing drinking a beer? Like you're 7 or 8 years old or whatever. And then I turned the bottle around and pointed to it, and they're just like, man, we can't leave you anywhere. So I think that's probably the first full beer that I had, and it was it was either a non-alcoholic or a near beer, but it was a gag, and I made my way through it, and then it probably was a good 15 years or so until I really started to drink craft beer.
It is amazing now, obviously we flash forward to where we are now, and the non-alcoholic side of things has grown from, obviously, like you had St. Pauli when you were a kid. Obviously, O'Doul's was the other big non-alcoholic beer, and now you have like these giant juggernauts of beer companies like Corona, Bud, Heineken making their own non-alcoholic beer. And then you also look at what Athletic Brewing has done with their non-alcoholic beers, and they are doing a fantastic job. And obviously it is beer, but the alcohol has been removed. So, let's say you are doing a dry January, you can actually have that as kind of like a filler, or let's say you have stopped giving up, or you've given up drinking in general. That beer is your itch, or is your scratch for whenever you have that itch.
Yeah, I've got a friend back home in Pennsylvania who he decided to give up drinking, but he just loves the taste of beer. So yeah, he shows up to a party and he's got a 12-pack of Athletic IPA, and that's just his drink for the night, which is it's great. It's nice that he can still experience that flavor profile and avoid the alcohol that he wants to cut out of his life. So it's great that that's an option. My brewing mentor from back in Pennsylvania, Kevin Spicer, he usually does a dry February, and he says it's because it's typically the shortest month, even with a leap year. But he drinks non-alcoholic beer the entire month. He's like, I can't go without the flavors. He's like, I'm fine without the alcohol. That's not a problem. But I need to have beer. So that's how he makes his way through his dry February.
I get that because I typically try to do dry January, and then I have friends that go to a local tap room here every Wednesday, and they actually have athletic beer. So anytime I go, I don't feel like I'm missing out, or I just have to drink water. So athletic beer, yeah, it scratches that itch.
Yeah.
Now that we know where you guys started with beer, what was your gateway craft beer that you were like, oh, this is actually what good beer can taste like? I can really get into this.
I'd say mine was probably Hop Devil by Victory Brewing Company. The part of Pennsylvania that I'm from, Westchester, Pennsylvania, is the next town over from where Victory Brewing Company's original location was in Downingtown. So I was in college. There was a college party across the alleyway from the house that I lived in, and the cops showed up. Everyone's like, "Oh, be quiet." And there are underage people there drinking beer. I was of legal drinking age, which automatically puts me in the pool of suspects as to who provided the alcohol for the party. So I quickly made my way out of the back door to go home, and in the process kicked a bottle that was in this backyard that was dimly lit, and like, oh, that's great, people can't clean up after themselves. And I picked it up, and it still had a cap on it, and I was like, oh, Victory Hop Devil. I was like, oh, this is that like craft beer that all those hippies drink. Like, this is probably going to be gross. So I took it home and I put it in my fridge. And, a couple hours later, I popped it open, I drank it. I was like, this is gross, but I had no idea beer could taste anything like this. So I made my way through that bottle of beer, and by the time I was done with it, like, that was it. I was changed. I'm like, hey, there's so much more out there, more so than, like, the Natty Ice or the Bud Light or Miller Lite that I had been accustomed to through college. So that's the one that really changed it.
Not that there's anything wrong with Natty Ice.
No, it has its time.
Of course, yeah.
Like, after you have a couple of double IPAs, that's the time for, the Natty Ice or the Miller Lite.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I'm embarrassed to say it was a Shipyard Pumpkinhead, which I consumed for an entire fall, and it's just, a really great pumpkin beer. And then after that, I was like, I can't go back and drink it anymore because I have trauma from that one fall. But it was just really cool to see the whole craft scene come on, because everyone was experimenting with so many different flavors, and it was such a unique experience to even kind of open your eyes to it. So that's definitely one that got me like, all right, people are doing some really interesting stuff, and that led me to the really exceptional stuff. So can't be too upset. And every once in a while, I have to go back to that Pumpkinhead. So
yeah, I still go back to the Hop Devil as frequently as I can. It doesn't make its way this far north in distribution. Well, they don't send much of it up here. So when I find it, I snatch it up, but it's not as available as it was when I lived 5 miles from the brewery. For better or for worse.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody the other day, and I think it was Honey Brown was one of mine that really got me early. And like, I just don't think about going to find it anymore. And I think the only place I found it around here was maybe a Whole Foods or something like that. But yeah, it's one of those where if you find it, you grab it, you try it, because again, it's that nostalgia. Because songs can do that, movies can do that, and beers can do that for you as well.
Yeah, so that was like what, J.W. Dundee's Honey Brown Ale? Or that's
Yeah,
enough brown
I think
ale.
so.
Trying to think. Yeah, I had a few of those in my day as well. But also, I've not sought it out since then. I've actually become
now there's so many other on the market.
I've become very much opposed to brown ale. So whenever I've worked at a brewery and someone suggests, like, hey, why don't we make a brown ale? And I was like, yeah, cool. I'll put pumpkin spice in it or chai or whatever, because I don't like brown ales. And when people say, well, why not? And I say, well, just it makes me, like, when I taste a brown ale, I feel like somebody just watered down my porter or my stout. And I know I'm not doing, I'm doing a disservice to the style, and a lot of people really like it. And there are people that make great brown ales out there. But, as my palate's evolved, it's moved on. And, I just need a little bit more than just a brown ale.
There is a brewer here in the Metroplex that was, he's a 5th generation brewer from Germany. He is not a fan of sours, but he got kind of contracted to make an entire brewery just for sours. And he's actually grown to love them, or not love them. He's grown to like them at least. So, I mean, maybe lean into the brown ale, and you never know, you might find a new passion for it.
Yeah, I'm sure eventually my arm will be twisted enough that we'll at least make a small batch of one. But yeah, it might not be my first choice on our draft list here at our restaurant. But, if people enjoy it at the end of the day, it's good to provide it. My former boss, when I worked at another local brewery, Stoneface Brewing Company, just over the line in New Hampshire, he would sometimes say to me when I, objected to something, he's like, Stampone, your opinion, though interesting, is completely irrelevant. And I've kind of held on to that and, sort of interpreted that as, it's not about me, it's about the consumer. So, I have some control over the direction of the beer program, but at the end of the day, if it's going to sell, really consider it. So I like to use that line.
Yeah, Dan sells himself short on that. I mean, he does, he's pretty dialed into what the consumer wants. It's one of the reasons that his kind of beer identity has evolved so well to what it is now with Batson River, which is this kind of very lager focused kind of identity. And really our Lünenkall German Pilsner is just fantastic. And then even the IPAs that he's crafting are very approachable and well balanced, and that's been kind of his hallmark from day one. So it's been really cool to see just that identity evolve, and I think he's pretty dialed in what the consumer wants too, and it's very, very exciting right now.
Yeah, I want to get into the history of how everything started, but I mean, we're kind of on the topic now. When it does come to trends that way, obviously you can't make a beer overnight that is going to satisfy people or, get on the whatever hop and craze is happening at the moment. When you do, look at a calendar and see where things are going or where you kind of want to take them for either creating a trend or maybe following whatever trends that happen to be going on with the beer scene, how do you kind of navigate that? Because obviously, like you said, maybe not brown ales for you, but you are going to lean a little more toward what your palate wants and what you really want to drink. But then, like you said, if you're helping the consumer and knowing what they want, how do you kind of forecast that?
The trend that we've had, over the past few years, even going back more than a few years, is, the really, really hop forward IPAs. So, that's a style that I've brewed for a long time, and I've made what I think are really, really good examples of the style. So, when I see that customers' tastes are trending in a certain way, they're, maybe a little hoppier or double dry hopped or something like that. I'll often just draw on my experience and kind of think back to what's worked before, the right combination of different malts that I can put there to have, the body and the mouthfeel they're looking for, and, to incorporate some of the hops that are on sort of like the hot hop list. I don't completely formulate my recipes based on that, but I can say, all right, well, I know that this particular hop is going to play well with these others. So I'll try to stack my dry hopping with, showcasing one hop primarily, and then I'll have a secondary and maybe the tertiary hop to support that one. So having that approach in the different, layers of hops with those particular types of beers, kind of gives me a lot of wiggle room where I can play around and do new things and try new hop products, but still, keep the beer within a range where I'm confident that when it's finished and it makes its